So I want to talk about Ethan and Xana for a second because I feel like they often get lost when we talk about this case. Like a lot of people, I assumed that Ethan and Xana were collateral damage, that the suspect came downstairs after attacking Maddie and Kaylee and ran into one or both of either Xana or Ethan, or somehow was seen by Xana or Ethan. And once we found out about the PCA and once we read it and once we learned what Dylan said she heard, or at least parts of what she heard, we don't know if that's all she heard. I couldn't come up with a logistical scenario that made sense where Xana or Ethan could have run into the suspect and there not been considerable disruption and noise. And so the more I thought about it, and the more I considered other parts of this, like the fact that there were four cars in that driveway when he went in that night, and he knew that, I now think that Xana and Ethan weren't collateral damage at all, and that he went into that house with the intention of unaliving everybody who was in it. So I don't think he ran into Xana. I don't think he ran into Ethan. I think he heard somebody downstairs or came downstairs and saw or heard activity coming from the direction of Xana's room and went straight to that room. But the other scenario I had a very hard time trying to figure out or envision in my head was, so it's believed that the orders of the unalivings was Maddie, Kaylee, Ethan, Xana. And we think that because Xana had defensive wounds, and if Ethan were still alive, he would have heard that. He might have made some noise. There would have been more disruption. So it was presumed that Ethan was already incapacitated. But that never made sense to me because the coroner said they were all in bed at the time of the when they were attacked, or that she believed that. But if they were all in bed, again, how would he have incapacitated Xana while attacking Ethan? It's just never, I haven't been able to come up with a scenario where he could do that without creating a ton of noise. And then I saw a photo on Reddit that I'm going to show you now. Now, this is an interior of what's believed to be Xana's bedroom. And if you remember from the PCA, they said that her body was visible from the hallway, which means her body was somewhere here, right? Like right in front of this window. And so, and that's what the red indicator is supposed to be pointing out. And the yellow is presumed to be Ethan. And I'll get to why I think Ethan was in the bed in a second. So her body's here. How could this attack? How could this attack have occurred in a way where there wasn't a lot of noise? And I think I might know, or at least this is speculation. So what I think is he came downstairs and this door was probably open. And either someone was in the bathroom, which is right outside this door. Remember, it's right next to the bedroom. I think he heard noise and went directly to this room, never expecting that Ethan was going to be in this bed. And Ethan was the only one in the room. Because I think Xana was probably in the bathroom. And I think I think Ethan was asleep. I think Ethan was on his stomach, asleep, didn't see what was coming, and I'll get to why I think that in a second. I think Ethan was in bed, under the covers, asleep. And I think he came in attacked Ethan. And then when he heard her maybe coming back to the bedroom, either wherever wherever Xana was, what I think is he hid behind the door. And I think that because we know that her body was found here. But what we, and there's no evidence from the photos that we've seen that she was in bed at the time or that the attack started in the bed. So I think she was up. She was standing around here. And I think he came from behind the door. I think he pushed her down, creating the thud. And I think that's where he attacked her. And I think that's where Dylan heard the noise. And I think at that point, when he attacked her, he closed the door. And that thud could very well be him closing the door or even slamming it. And so that's why I think Xana was where she was and Ethan was where he was. And that's the only scenario that makes sense to me, that he would be able to, that Xana could have been attacked last. Now I'll come back to this picture in a second, but I'm going to get into another picture to help explain why I don't think Xana was attacked in bed and why I think Ethan was asleep. Now I'm going to do a bit of a trigger warning because this photo is graphic. Now, many of us have seen this mattress that came out of the house. Now, we know from Kaylee's dad that Kaylee was trapped between the wall and Maddie's body and that she put up a fight. So there were two people on that mattress. There was a struggle. And so I would assume that if this mattress was Maddie and Kaylee, there would be more blood on the left side of the mattress. There isn't. Now we know that Xana was found on the floor, so that only leaves Ethan. And the reason I don't think Xana was in bed initially when she was attacked is, again, there's no blood on the left side of this mattress. I think Ethan was very much asleep, if not passed out. And I think this is Ethan because the tip of his head is at the tip of that mattress. Now, I'm 5'5". Most people, when they go to bed, they're probably like maybe 4 or 5 inches away from the top. He was 6'4". Like his body ran the length of that mattress. So you have the head at the tip of the mattress. You have the size of the chest. You have the arm span, because this to me this looks like arms right here. And these look like hands and potentially a thumb right here. And given the direction that the thumb is pointing, that to me suggests he was on his stomach. Because if he were on his back, laying like this, his thumbs would be in the downward position. Again, this is just speculation. So I think that Ethan was in this on the mattress. I think he was fast asleep. And I think, because there's still such a pretty clear outline of the body and the face, which strikes me as weird, because if his head was on a pillow, I would think that the pillow would have absorbed a lot of the blood, which makes me wonder if the suspect didn't take Xana's pillow and put it, or take his pillow or do something and put it over Ethan's head so that he wouldn't make any noise, or that if he did, nobody would hear it. So this is where I think they found Ethan, which is why Christy, Kaylee's mom, she went on the Drunk Turkey podcast and she said that she spoke to Hunter Johnson, who is Ethan's best friend, who is alleged to have found the bodies. And she said that he told her that the reason the girls called him over that morning was because they couldn't get into Xana's room. Now, whether that's because the door was locked, I'm not sure. But Christy said that Hunter told her Ethan was blocking the door. Based on this outline, I don't think it was Ethan. I think it was Xana. I think it was Xana's body blocking the door. So this is why I don't believe that Ethan was found in the hallway, why I don't believe there was any struggle with Ethan. I don't think the attack started in the hallway and then ended on the bed. No, this is no, because there's just nothing. The whole left side of this mattress looks fairly clear. Fairly clear. There's a little bit here. This looks like somebody, quite honestly, was pinned down. Now, returning to this photo, one of the other reasons why I think Ethan was in bed is now, if Ethan was on the side of the mattress closest to the wall, which is what, it definitely looks, well, you can't really tell on the mattress where he was, if he was against the wall or not. But the reason I think he was is if he was against the wall on that side of the bed, then look where the blood stain is dripping off the foundation. I think the blood could have pooled right around here, right underneath the headboard, and that's where it seeped out. So that is the other reason why I think Ethan was in bed. I think he was on that side of the bed. I don't think Xana was awake. I mean, I don't think Xana was in bed, excuse me. I think she was awake, and I think he sort of stunned her when she came into the bedroom. Now, in the comments of my previous video, a lot of people said that they didn't believe that the surviving roommates didn't hear anything. And this is a very common belief or opinion. So I want to go over how it could be possible that these 4 students could be attacked and not make any noise or very little noise. This is an interview that the actor Christopher Lee did when he was filming Lord of the Rings. And keep in mind, he has a past of being involved with, is it M13 or some sort of secret service in England. So he knows what he's talking about.
You ought to see me with the 357 Magnum. I'm awesome.
When Wormtongue rises up and comes up behind Saruman to stab him, of course it was my job as director to talk to Christopher Lee and to explain to him what I wanted. So I started to go into this long explanation about what sort of sound he should make when he got stabbed.
I seem to recall that I did say to Peter, have you any idea of what kind of noise happens when somebody is stabbed in the back? And I said, well, because I do.
Oh, yeah. You see, it's not,
I like that. It's because the breath's driven out of your body.
As you can see, Christopher Lee says that when somebody's stabbed, there isn't an initial scream. It's more of a deep inhale. And if you do any research or Google what it's like, how people react when they're stabbed, what you'll hear or what you'll read many people say is that it feels like you're being slapped in the back, or it feels like a punch to the back. There isn't that initial pain. You're not really aware of what's going on. But in the seconds that it takes you to start feeling that pain, which is like 4 or 5 seconds, that's all somebody with a very, very sharp object needs to incapacitate you and stab you in the lung, in the throat, making it almost impossible for you to scream. I want people to remember Ted Bundy attacked the Chi Omega sorority house when there were 30 people inside. It was 3 o'clock in the morning, broken back door, very similar to Idaho. He didn't know where he was going. He didn't know who he was attacking. He attacked 4 women in under 15 minutes, with two of them dying in under 15 minutes in a house that was probably 2 or 3 times the size of the King Road house. It is very possible for someone to get in and get out and commit and act like this and people not hear it, especially if you are used to hearing noise. You're not going to know what it is. And a lot of people, I think, now are applying a hindsight bias to this case. And because we know what was going on when Dylan heard crying and when Dylan heard a thud, because we know, we're applying that hindsight bias and saying, well, she must have known. But in that situation, Dylan probably had no idea. She probably thought there's something going on. There's like a fight or whatever. Would I want a woman to go check and see what's going on with men fighting? No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't want a woman to walk into that, especially someone very young. I wouldn't want that for her. And I also believe after the suspect left, all we know is that Dylan locked her door. I truly believe that when she was sure he was gone, she got out of her room. I believe, and she went to Xana's room. And I think the door was closed because remember, that's what Kaylee's mom said, that they couldn't get in the room. And I believe in that moment, just moments after those two were attacked, she didn't think anything was wrong. And it wasn't until the next morning when she woke up and maybe they smelled something, or maybe they remembered, like, oh, the thud. And remember, this thud, there's crying, there's someone saying, it's okay, I'm going to help you. Put those three things together in your mind and you're thinking, oh, did she fall? Did she hurt herself? You're not thinking someone is brutally unaliving them. You're thinking, oh, did someone get hurt? And we don't know what that house was like. You know, we can assume based on things that we see in videos, but we don't know what that house was like on a Saturday night at 4 o'clock in the morning. We don't know how common it was for there to be parties and noise and people in and out. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And I also wanted to address, somebody brought this up in the comments as well, the frozen shock phase that Dylan said she was in, that we read in the PCA. Now, a lot of us, when we first read that, again, with hindsight bias, we assumed that meant she knew something had happened, and so she was terrified. She was in fear. And now, without the hindsight bias, looking at that situation, I think frozen shock phase is, she's describing that moment that every one of us have when we're walking down the street and maybe we're not paying attention and we're about to bump into somebody, or somebody jumps in front of us, or somebody maybe taps us on the back unexpectedly. What do? You go, you breathe in, you tighten, your body tightens. That's what I think she means by a frozen shock phase. I don't think she was saying she was terrified. I think she was saying she experienced an intense surprise because she opened her door and she saw a man wearing a mask, very potentially a balaclava. And she was like, what is that? And is it common there? Was it common to wear balaclavas that time of year? Some say yes, some say no. But the most important thing to remember is, regardless of when they reacted, regardless of when they called 911, that would not have changed the outcome of that crime. That they did not commit those murders. And just because they didn't call police, just because they went to sleep thinking, oh, maybe Ethan got into a fight with somebody, just because it didn't occur to them to automatically think, oh my God, there was a murder, that doesn't mean they did something wrong. That doesn't mean they contributed to their roommates' deaths. The only person responsible for that is, allegedly, that person is sitting in jail right now. So I just want people to remember that before they start accusing the roommates. It's very possible that there was no sound, that they didn't hear anything. It's very possible that that house was full of noise and it didn't occur to them. And it's very possible that he attacked them in a way that incapacitated them very quickly so they couldn't make any noise. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for the response to the last video. If you want, hit the subscribe button, go to my Substack and subscribe to that. It's characteranalysis.substack.com. And I write posts and I post podcast episodes about true crime, about the Idaho 4, and about some pop culture topics. Mostly, I'm just fascinated with why we do what we do. So if that interests you, follow my Substack, follow me here. You can send me an email at characteranalysissubstack@gmail.com. And if there's a case that you want me to talk about or look into, just let me know. Bye.